You're listening to the 95Podcast from the team at 95 Network, where we host conversations specifically designed to support leaders in small and mid-sized churches.
Well, welcome back to the 95 Podcast. Guys, it feels great because today I am back with my friend and co-host, executive director of 95 Network, post-sabbatical extraordinaire, Dale Sellers. Dale, welcome back to the show.
Where's the drum roll?
I
can assure you it's good to be back. It is good to be back.
You have been gone for 40 days and 40 nights. We were just talking about, literally, this is the first time you and I are talking since you've been on sabbatical. We chatted for like 5 minutes before we started recording, and you were like, let's just roll. Let's just chat.
Yeah. There's some stuff I'm going to share that I didn't want you to know ahead of time because I want you to react.
Austin, you're fired. No,
I want you to react the way the listeners are going to probably react. So
yeah, I'm super excited. So just in general, we were kind of joking about how it kind of feels like we're back in Bible times a little bit, talking about 40 days and 40 nights, like there's a flood coming or something, which maybe you're about to tell us that there's a flood coming. I don't know.
You'd be surprised at how close that is.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very excited. So anyways, just in general, before we get into some of the specifics, how are you feeling today?
Hopeful.
Okay.
Very hopeful, very, I think God gave me a very clear word. I think we talked about this on the last podcast, that I needed to take the sabbatical because he was preparing me for what's coming. Yeah. And I just literally finished an hour-and-a-half conversation with a very large media group that there's tremendous potential in that relationship if it develops. And so that was the very first call I've had since I've been gone. And so that was like, wow, well, that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
But,
I remember
hopeful is a good word.
That's cool. Was it hard for you? Like once you got started, was it hard for you to stick with it for the 40 days and like not check in on emails or anything? Or was it like you were good?
Well, I'm kind of done with social media anyway, because I found that what I do is I sit and I already knew I needed to fix this problem. I'll just sit and flip through like Twitter. I mean, I like Twitter because it's real short, but I'll just sit and flip through it and not look at anything.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, Dale, this isn't healthy. And then, getting on and I'm one of these obnoxious people that I can't stand to have a notification. So I have to go.
So you have to check everything.
And I have to check them all. If I don't do anything, but just click it so it goes away. And I'm going, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so getting off social, that side, the negative side, and then, as we've talked about in the past, I quit listening to the news media and all that kind of stuff back in March of last year. Yeah. So just, the only thing that I even still look at remotely is, insider Clemson football stuff, because that's my team. But honestly, I don't know what's going on in the world. I had breakfast with a friend yesterday and he said, well, I guess you heard about this. And I go, nope,
I haven't.
Nope. So and people were like, well, you're going to have to make sure you discipline yourself. I'm like, I'm not going to cheat.
Right.
I'm just not going to, I have no desire to cheat. I already know that I need to straighten some of this stuff out in my life, but I had no idea what was going to happen.
Okay. So I remember the phrase before you left was you kind of felt like God was saying, come and get away. I remember you saying that. How did you experience him over those 40 days?
Let me walk you through it, and then can get your pen ready because you're going to get a few questions you're going to want to write down.
It's right here, buddy.
Okay, so here's the way things happen. If you remember, this is very important to set all this up. Remember that what part of the tone of the last podcast we did about the sabbatical was I was dealing with guilt because a lot of our small church pastors can't take a 40-day sabbatical. Totally. And so I spent a lot of time trying to encourage them to realize, hey, okay, maybe you can't do a 40-day sabbatical, but you need to take some time off, because all statistics are showing that most small churches have pastors or leaders are not healthy because of the pandemic. And remember, I talked about how there was a second wave coming, and it has nothing to do with the Delta variant or that. It was the emotional, and I'm already seeing that. So that was kind of the way we left things. And so The sabbatical started on Saturday, the 26th of June.
Yep.
And my granddaughter we celebrated her birthday. She was born on 24th, but we had a big pool party. So it was an awesome day. At one point she comes over to me and says, "Poppy, hold me. I'm cold." And so I got to sit and hold her, and she ate. And it was just like, God, what a gift. It's precious.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And then the next day we packed up and went to Hilton Head for 8 to 10 days. Our friends had given us their condo. Because and what it was cool about that was someone else had already had it booked and they had to pull out, and that's why it became available.
Oh wow. So it was
it wasn't even, they literally the week of the week the sabbatical starts, they call and say, "Hey, look, these people can't come. We want you to have it." So you go, okay, God has, first of all, I want to make sure everybody understands up front, I had not intended to do a sabbatical this year.
Yeah.
It's the 1st of June is when God began to deal with me about it. I talked to you guys about it on the prayer call. It became very obvious that God wanted me to go on the sabbatical. So I know for sure that I was exactly where he wanted me to be to go on the sabbatical. And then, then they provide the free condo. So we go to the beach, and Gina and I go for a few days just by ourselves. And then we have some friends that come join us. Jason and Jen come and join us. And then TJ, my son-in-law, brings my granddaughter, Sienna, and they come down on Thursday. They come in on Friday. They stay Friday night and then spend all day with us Saturday. And then he drive back home Saturday night because just hang out a couple of days. And our youngest daughter, Lydia, who came down.
Okay.
And so, because the condo's big and we had all this room and it was just fun. And so on Saturday, July 3rd, we'd had a great week all week, hanging out. And one of the things I want to tell you is I love the ocean. I grew up playing in the ocean, but about 10 years ago, I got hit really hard by a jellyfish.
Oh, wow.
And it hit the inside of my thigh on my left leg, and it took 9 months for that to heal. So it was a direct hit. So I'm not
like it charged at you or something, or
I didn't see it coming. It just hit. The
Wow.
best way I could describe it, it would be like if someone took a big one of those big round shower heads, and instead of water coming out, that was all needles and hit you. That's kind of what it was like.
Oh my goodness.
And it took my leg forever to heal. So I have not gotten into the Atlantic Ocean a lot since then.
Yeah.
Because I spend my whole time looking for sharks and jellyfish, But where we were at Hilton Head, it was really calm. It was really nice. And so we were there. And on Saturday, Sienna, my granddaughter, wanted to get in the ocean, and I just jumped up and said, "Hey, I'll go out there with you." With Austin, we spent an hour and a half out there together.
Yeah.
Just me and her. It was so awesome. And there was not a lot of waves. And Sienna's understanding of the ocean is from the movie Moana. So we spent the whole day talking about the undertow. The undertow will take you out there. And she says, "That's where the sharks are, right? Where the undertow goes." And I finally said, "Yeah." She says, "Do we eat sharks?" I said, "Yeah, they eat us too." So we spent all day
looking around constantly.
Yeah, we just spent all day talking. I mean, when I'm in the Atlantic Ocean specifically, I'm always moving and looking and then if you follow the story, there've been 3 shark bites where we were in the last 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So it's just crazy. So anyway, we spent about an hour and a half together, had so much fun, came in for a while, had lunch. And then that afternoon, me and Sienna and TJ spent the afternoon for an hour and a half in those. So I spent about 3 hours or plus in the ocean, just jumping waves, having the time of my life, just enjoying it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So that night we all have dinner, then they head back home. And then the next day, me and Gina, our friend Jennifer, and Lydia, my daughter, we're all down at the beach. We get down there kind of late that day. And the waves are a little bit stronger this day. We're a little further down. But man, it was just like you jumping waves. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So we're jumping waves. We're having a big time. And we get caught in a rip current.
No.
And we got pulled way out.
Really?
Oh yeah. It gets so we're all of a sudden we realize we're in trouble. We are so far out, you can't see us.
Yeah.
And Gina is my wife. She's a very good swimmer, and she took junior life saving. And so she was so calm because we can't touch. Right. And it's just wave after wave after wave. They won't stop. And we're getting sucked out. In fact, there's a little cruise boat out there, and we're closer to the cruise boat than we are to the shore.
Yeah.
And so at this point, Lydia starts panicking and starts yelling at the cruise boat and say, "Help, we need help." And they can't hear us. And somehow Jennifer was able to break out of the rip current. She swam sideways and she got out of it. And so she goes to the shore and runs to the locker where the lifeguard is way far away because we're further down than normal. And I'm not in a really good place.
Yeah.
So Gina's calming us down. Gina's very calm. And so she's, just everybody just keep breathing, float. The current will kick us out and we'll come back in. Well, I'm watching Lydia panic. So I start freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm watching Gina calm us down. And at this point, I begin to realize I've been kicking like a fool, man. I mean, I've been breathing in as much air as I can and trying to float and stay on top of the water and all that kind of stuff. But I'm beginning to get exhausted.
Yeah.
And so Gina gets Lydia to calm down. We are all within 15 feet of each other, just getting hit by wave after wave after wave. And so I looked at them when Lydia kind of calmed down and I said, I'm not doing so well. And they looked at me and they said the left side of my face had dropped.
Oh, wow.
And at this point, I realized I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do what Gina said and trying to remember what me and Sienna had talked about the day before. If you get caught in the rip current, just ride it out and it'll spit you out and you can come back in.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, I'm trying just to hold my breath and float. And every wave is just going over my head. And I'm getting so aggravated.
Yeah.
But I am so exhausted that I'm going, I'm not going to make it.
Wow.
And Jennifer had found a guy and talked this guy into coming out there with his boogie board. And this dude shows up about 15 seconds before I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Like when you were done.
And so the guy, I grab his boogie board and at that moment, this wave comes and it pushes us all in.
Wow.
So it puts Gina and Lydia back in. And this poor dude, Gina said she watched, his boogie board had a rope on it. And I went right over top of him because I rode above the wave, but he goes under. It's like, we're going to kill this guy trying to save us, And
my goodness, man.
So we get in far enough to where I can touch bottom. And then at this point, I'm so exhausted that I can't walk in by myself. So my friend, Jennifer's husband, Jason, comes out. He gets on one side of me. This man gets on the other side and they walk me to our chair.
Yeah,
that I was in. And I just wanted to sit down. And Austin, I was so exhausted that I was awake, but I couldn't keep my eyes open. It wasn't like I wanted to go to sleep. I was just, I have never been this tired. So I'm sitting in the chair. And as it worked out, the guy sitting beside us in the umbrella beside us is a doctor. And he comes running over to check on me. And I've got this huge scar on my chest from when I had open heart surgery 5 years ago. So I can see that everybody's eyes are drawn to the scar. It's like, oh, Lord, what's this guy's heart? And by now, Jennifer's gotten the lifeguards. They've come over there. They're freaking out. They've not had this happen to them. And I did not know, but at the particular place we were, they actually have a doctor on call. Yeah. And so the lifeguard, when they called, he called the wrong doctor. The guy he called was not on call that day, but he happened to be at the beach with his family. So he comes running over to me. So I've got two doctors there taking care of me, checking my blood pressure and all this stuff. And they looked at me and they said, "How are you?" I said, "Listen, I'm very nauseated right now." I said, "But I'm just exhausted, And they said, "Well, can you walk up to the ambulance? We want to check you out." I said, "No." So they roll me out of my chair onto a backboard, strap me to a backboard, put me in the back of a pickup truck, drive me over to where the trail is to get to the ambulance. Yeah. The trail needed to be cleared. So we're getting slapped by limbs the whole time as they're carrying me up to the ambulance. And if you ever have the opportunity to be carried on a backboard, please tell them to put the short person in the back, not in the front. Because so the people can't see this, but it was
your head is like
my head is like sliding off because the short guy's in the front angling. And I'm like, God, what is happening to me? And so they put me in the ambulance, jab a IV in me, and then we head to the hospital. Well, the guy driving the ambulance hadn't been in this particular place before, so he kept getting lost. He couldn't get out of the. We were at Palmetto. We were beside Palmetto.
Gosh, this is just thing after thing after thing.
Oh, and so this guy, he can't. And so finally, the guy in the back goes, "Do you need me to come drive? I mean, can you not get out of this place?" So finally, they get us to the hospital. They put me in the hospital bed, and they said, "How do you feel?" I said, "Well, I need to go to the restroom," but I said I'm really nauseated, and so they took me in and put me in the hospital bed, and they set me up. And when they set me up, I said, "I need to throw up back." Wow! And I just lost it all. And then, of course, I felt a lot better because I had swallowed a bunch of salt water. But I told him, I said, I don't think I breathed any salt water in my lungs. And I had this really obnoxious nurse. She was awesome. And she's like, I'm going, hey, your bedside manner is terrible. And so I kept trying to,
I can totally picture that.
I kept trying to make everybody else feel better. It was just the weirdest thing. I'm the guy who almost drowned, and I'm trying to make everybody else feel better. And so I stayed in the hospital for about 6 hours as they monitored me. They x-rayed my lungs. There was no water in my lungs. And it was okay. Yeah. So we go back to the room that night. Of course, we're all stunned. We're all shocked. And it's all 5 of us that are in the room all experienced this together. And so the next day we're like, you know what? We got one more day down here, but I think let's just go down to Savannah for a day. I just don't want to be at Hilton anymore. But we did do this, and I'll send you the pictures. We did go the next day. We all went back down to the ocean and went and stood in it knee deep, put our arms around each other, and took some pictures. I took some pictures with the lifeguard. I took some pictures of the truck where they'd carried me out. Because you if you don't go back, you lose that part of your life.
Yep.
All right. Stop note for everyone who doesn't know this. I almost drowned 15 years ago with my dad.
I was about to,
in a canoeing accident. And so when that happened, the next day I went back down to the river, fished from the bank, and 2 weeks later went back and got in the canoe. People are like, you did what? I'm going, you can't let something like this rob this wonderful thing from your life. And so I didn't want to lose the ability, even though I'm probably not going to go getting in the ocean.
It'll be another 10 years.
Too many sharks. Well, I'm going to go to the place where the water's clear. Exactly. And so the next day we go and we decided to drive to Savannah. Well, Lydia and Gina rode together because Lydia had her car, and I didn't want Lydia to be by herself because she was very shaken, of course, because she thought her dad was going to drown.
Yeah.
And poor Gina was having, I was watching Gina. She was having, do I go save my daughter? Or do I try to save my husband? So Gina had to deal with that dynamic. So Savannah is about 45 minutes or so from Hilton Head. And so I drove by myself there and listened to worship music, and I cried the whole way.
Yeah.
It was like, wow. I mean, I'm a mess. And then the next day we got up, had lunch, and then they stayed and looked around Savannah for a while. But I went on home, and I cried from Savannah to home in Greenville, which is 5 hours, the whole way. When I got home, I unloaded the car. I kept crying. I was listening to worship music, which was helping me. And if you guys have not heard the song Jireh by Maverick City Music and Elevation, the first line of the song, the reason I know about Jireh is because a friend called me up and said one day, you need to listen to the song, Dale, because it's got a line from your book in it. And the opening line of the song says, it goes, I've never been more loved than I am right now. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud.
Yeah.
I'll never be. So that really spoke to me. But the second verse says this: I'm going through a storm, but I won't go down. I hear your voice on the whisper of the wind, calling me out.
Yeah.
You would cross an ocean so I wouldn't drown.
Wow.
I've never been more loved than I am right now. And then the whole song goes on and talks about Jireh and him being the provider for you and all this kind of stuff. And so that was already my song before this, but that second verse, you'd cross an ocean so I would drown. See, I felt like the Lord blew a wind and caught us in that wave and blew us in at the very last moment.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to this. Obviously, it's still fresh. And that night I go, okay, something's broken in me. And so I reached out to Bob Hamp, you know how the effect Bob has on my life. And I said, hey, Bob, this has happened. I'm broken. I need help. I've never gone to professional counseling in my life, but I'm something snapped in me because, 15 years before I almost drowned, I had a quadruple bypass surgery 5 years ago, and now this happens again.
It's a trigger. Yeah.
And I'm there, and then see, I've also got the parallel of our podcast we did with Carl Vader's talking about trauma.
Yeah.
So I get to Bob, and the first thing Bob says that trauma is as much an injury as a physical injury, but we don't know that. Yeah. So the effects of trauma, most of us just keep going. And so I went to Texas. Gina and I worked it out, and Bob saw me for 4 sessions, and I sat on the couch and
cried.
I didn't cry as much at this point because, again, here's the question that I needed answering. God called me to the sabbatical. We didn't do anything wrong. We're just enjoying the ocean. And here I am again. And I'm watching my daughter. I can't save her. I'm watching my wife. I can't save her. What is going on? And Bob looked at me, and I don't know how much of this I'll get into, but Bob just said, Dale, he said, what do they tell you on a plane? And Carl talked about this. What do they tell you on a plane if your mask drops? Put yours on first. He said, you've spent your entire life taking care of everybody else. And you almost died because of it. Even with the canoe with Daddy, I rode the canoe over to see where he went in so I could go help him to my own detriment.
Right.
And it's like, God's like, we got to fix this in you. And so we go, we have a great time. We get back, and Gina and I both get COVID.
I saw on your calendar.
We had COVID for 2 stinking weeks.
Wow. From Texas, was it? Or from?
Well,
sure.
Lydia got it. Jason and Jennifer got it. So we don't know. It might have got it in Hilton Head. I don't know where we got it because it's just so easy to get. So after all of that, we are at home
get COVID.
With COVID, quarantine, and I cannot tell you how miserable sick we were.
Yeah.
And my understanding is we had a mild case of it.
Yeah.
So Dale's like, I want this sabbatical to be over.
I'm ready to get back to normal.
I need to go back to normal because if this is what a sabbatical is all about. But
dude, this is just crazy.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell you this ahead of time because I thought it would help you ask questions that people were listening would want to ask. And so today's the first day back at work.
Yeah.
Literally, I started last 7 or 8 days ago. So I started feeling better. I mean, I had fever for like 8 days. I threw up for 2 days in a row, but there was nothing because I couldn't eat anything.
Exactly.
I lost 12 pounds just during COVID.
Wow.
It was crazy. And so you walk out of this and you go, okay, God, what up? What up with this? And part of what I got while being with Bob was understanding the effects of the trauma. And I sent him a letter with all of the things I've dealt with in just the last 14 months.
Yeah.
Gina's father passes away. My dad gets COVID, other issues that had happened, just lots of different things. All of them, each one of them was a level of trauma, not to mention all the ministry we've been doing.
Yeah.
But God began to show me something about myself. And I wanted to share this part because I think this is where a lot of small church pastors are. The Lord began to show me when Bob started highlighting, Dale, you've got to take care of yourself first. That my theme song in life has always been, Dale's got the whole world in his hands. And God began to show me like that all these people that I feel responsible for, you and your wife were part of that list, where it's like, I've got to help them. I got to be there for them. I got to help them. So it's my kids, it's our friends, it's New Spring Church.
Yeah.
Those guys don't know this, but it's like, I had to release them to God. It's like, I'm responsible to make sure that they are all healthy.
Yeah. So it's interesting too, because your passion for helping people and supporting people, it like got wrapped up in the need, like, I don't necessarily say this in a negative way, but like the need for control. And all of a sudden it's like, the pressure is on your shoulders again.
So let me tell you what Bob says.
Yeah.
So when I had my heart surgery, I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but we had a very large amount of money given to us from just a lot of different people to help us through that season, because I was like freaking out. How am I going to make ends meet? And God provided everything we needed. I couldn't work that spring. And that spring was the best spring I've ever had at the river. Yeah. And I talk about how I love to go down there. I put 430 fillets in our freezer that year. And part of it's just because I could fish. That's all I could do is fish. But it was the most primo year ever at the river that year. Yeah. And so Bob looks at me and he goes, and so what you're telling me is, Dale, is when you did nothing, you caught the most fish.
Yeah.
And when you did nothing, God provided the most finances. And then I was able to realize there was another period of time in our lives where I did not work for 16 weeks. I was doing construction and it just shut down. And some people, some friends of ours that helped us with our home, and we didn't lose our home. We had tremendous favor. And so God said, and when you could do nothing, you had the greatest favor in your life.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, I guess you're right, Bob. So you got to understand Dale's story. You got to go back and understand the stalled and how the problem Jesus came to solve helped me.
Yeah.
And I thought I had been completely set free, but that was like level 1, and this is level 2. And I'm sure there's more levels, but I hope I don't have to go through any more drowning experiences to figure them out. You know, I what Bob showed me was, and I don't want to get too far into this because I don't want to be disrespectful, but basically my dad, my dad was in our home. My dad's still living today. He's 83 in a nursing home because COVID, you know, he had COVID, but my dad did not emotionally lead us.
Yeah.
My dad was physically present, but he didn't lead our home. And in fact, there's one line in the book where I talk about how I don't remember him ever rescuing me.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember him not rescuing me. It's just blank. But what Bob helped me to see is from a kid, I have taken on everybody else's, the responsibility in my mind for everybody. There would be times, you know, mom and dad would be having problems and mom would, you know, talk to me about it. Yeah. And if you're listening right now, don't do that to your children. That's horrible. Yeah. You don't tell your kids, well, I think I'm going to leave your dad. Don't do that. That's just because she's just blowing off steam. But Dale takes it all and internalizes it. And so I began to realize that this all happened in my life when I was a kid. And so Bob's making me do something, and you'll think this is so bizarre, but I'm having to do a grief journal. Yeah. So he says there's things that I've never grieved in my life. And I don't want to lose you listening if you don't like the book, The Shack. I don't care what your theology about it is, but the story in The Shack is about a guy who loses his kid and how the Lord in the book appears to him and all this kind of stuff. And so I had read that book, and it impacted me when I'd read it before because I had 3 daughters. The Lord shows me this right after we get back from being with Bob. In The Shack, he shows me that I'm the dad that, you know, that experienced the loss. Yep. But then he shows me, but I'm also the kid. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, Nelly. And so I didn't have much. I had what I thought was a normal childhood, but I took on responsibility for everybody, for my sisters, for my mom and my dad. There's so much more into that I can't get into. And it shaped me being as the messed up person I am now. So when the sabbatical starts, the Lord's going, I got it. I'm going to do a work in you to get you ready for what's coming. Because, and I don't hope this doesn't come across wrong, because this is not my desire, but the Lord basically was saying, I'm going to give you the world. Now, and I'm not pursuing that. I'm happy as a bug in a rug right now with what we're doing. And I'm good if I don't write any more books or produce any more things, or I just want to help churches. But that's what the Lord spoke to me before I left. And now I know a lot about why, because I can't help anybody if I take on all their stuff. Jesus is the one that took it on for us. And so I understand a lot more about how, you know, when he went walking on the water after he fed the 5,000, in the book of Mark, it says, and he would have passed them by if they hadn't cried out. And Peter, that's also when Peter's trying to walk on water. And I'm like, but it says at the end of that chapter, they didn't understand about the feeding of the 5,000 because of the hardness of their hearts. And you can be hard-hearted because you're in sin. You can be hard-hearted because you're bitter. But sometimes you can be hard-hearted because you've let life layer you in certain ways. And I thought, my goodness, this is where most of our pastors are. Yeah. They're so busy trying to save everybody else that they're not taking care of themselves. And that's why our churches are so unhealthy. Hey, so there's the sabbatical. Got any questions?
Oh my goodness. I need to take a breath, and I didn't experience any of it.
And it's funny you said that, because Bob told me, he said, Dale,
take a breath.
Breathe. Yeah. Breathe. And he did tell me this, and this was huge. Bob said, Dale, I don't want you to have Sabbath as a day of the week. I want you to build Sabbath into your daily routine. Yeah. Where you learn how to just wait on the Lord daily. Because he said, it was a good example. He said, your stopping spot, your stopping place is really narrow. Like if you're in a car and you're going on the interstate, basically, Dale, the way you live is you're tailgating somebody. And we've got to create room for you to slow down. That's why I don't know if I'll do another 40-day sabbatical. I just don't know if that'll work out. But I do know this: from now on, when I go on vacation, I'm going to take 2 weeks, because it takes a week just to shut it all down. Mm-hmm. And I'm so much more, this is so bad. I'm so much more healthy now than I was 5 years ago.
Yeah. Like it's better. And you so still have those roadblocks. Yeah.
But Bob said, Dale, you almost drowned because you were so busy. And I'm like, what do you do? It's your daughter. Mm-hmm. Come on now. I mean, this is real life. And our pastors and our leaders in our churches, they can hear all the gurus tell them, or you need to do this and you do that. It's still real life. Mm-hmm. In real life, you got to make choices. But the thing I want to say to everybody listening is if you can't stay afloat, you can't help anybody. And dude, I was Austin, I have never been that exhausted ever.
Yeah.
That they popped an IV in me. They gave me 6 potassium pills because I had no potassium in my body because I burned it up.
Yeah.
And so that was my sabbatical.
Wow. That phrase is really, actually, I have a quick question. Are you still working on your grief journal?
Oh, I will be doing that for months.
Yeah.
Oh, for months, because I've got friends, some of the friends you know about that are no longer in ministry. And I had to go back and write their name down. And people that I have helped over the years who've made bad choices. And I'm the last guy that's going to judge you. I'm not going to pile on. If you messed up, hey, look, there are consequences, but hopefully you can put it back together again. And some of my friends can't put it back together again. They've blown it up. They've blown it up, and that kills me. But I still love them, and I'm never going to disassociate with anybody. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you do. I ain't gonna do that. Jesus wouldn't do that. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, and I just think it's a really good exercise for just across the board. And I'm really glad that Bob is having you do it, because I remember when I was in counseling, it wasn't a grief journal specifically, but my counselor, a very similar thing, just like would make me actually write out like my thoughts about something, because I'm an external processor, but I was trying to hold everything in, that I had experienced. But like, it's like the moment you speak it or write it or, actually see it outside of your head and your heart, it's like that release, right? You're like able to actually give it over to God.
That's the cool thing about Bob. He highlights a problem or something pops up and he knows we need to do it. And then he'll stop. He said, let's just stop and pray. He says, so how did Jesus see you? Dale, where was Jesus? That was a huge question for me, because I didn't know the answer to that. And when I went down there, he said, where was Jesus during all this? I'm going, he was right there.
Yeah.
He was right there. And I said, sometimes you don't understand things, because I went to Texas to get the answer to this question. Did God cause that, or did it just happen?
Yep. I
I'm like, I don't know how to word it, but I know that it didn't catch God off guard, because there was a deep thing in me that had it. I guess I couldn't hear him any other way. Yeah. But when you're there and see, your whole thing is to protect your family. That's who I am. I'm protecting everybody, and realizing that, you're not in control. And I knew that I wasn't in control, but this was just a different level. And so I'm sure there'll be other revelation that are going to come beyond it all. But and I told you up front, I mean, I don't have any, which was really good. I don't have any expectations for this sabbatical.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't. I will tell you this. I did think I was going to play a lot of golf. I have not played golf. I didn't get to play golf one time because of COVID, because when I get back from all that stuff, I'm going to play some golf then. And get back and we get COVID. It was just like, are you kidding me? But even there, if I had to get COVID, that was the best time in my schedule to get it, because I didn't have to cancel anything. It was again, it sucked.
Yeah, I literally can only imagine.
It's awful. It's just thinking, dude.
They weren't joking, man. I know.
One morning at 3 a.m, because at this point you're bored out of your flipping mind. You can't do anything. You have no energy, and you can't sleep. And it's 3 a.m, and I'm downstairs sitting in my recliner, and I'm going, I can't even cry. I'm like,
just
God,
so exhausted.
God, I'm just so tired. I can't cry. Like I can't sleep. Just take me.
Yeah, I'm done.
I can't take any more of this. But
Wow.
but you can. And so I've not been lacking in compassion with people who've experienced it, but until you've experienced it,
It's
there's
different.
no way.
Yeah.
It's not a political issue. It's a health issue. Ooh, anyway,
Wow.
any questions?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we need to go into every detail of it, but I do have two, I guess, lanes, two paths. What did I say on one of our last ones? Two threads I want to pull on.
Yes. I like that. We're becoming so professional at this.
I know. The first one is, so you said this phrase, if you can't stay afloat, you can't help anybody. Which is, that's just one of them that just got to let simmer for a little bit. But just in general, your experiences don't necessarily have to lead into principles, things, but just today, as you're getting back into work, as you are just still taking a breath from what happened, and even just processing, I'm sure, your counseling sessions with Bob, and processing having COVID for 2 weeks and just the craziness. What is your heart today for church leaders?
To breathe. See, the thing that saved my life that day was I knew I had to float. And see, I tell everybody, for all my fishermen friend out there, there's corks that you can use when you're fishing, and there's the little round ball kind, but there's also he's got these long stems on them. And so I tell her, that's how I float. I float vertical. So when I float, it's just my head above the water. Most people float horizontal, but Dale can't do that.
That's called treading water, but
yes,
it's not.
And that's basically what I did. But I did have enough sense. I just kept breathing in as much as I could, because I know that I can float better when I've got air in me.
Yes.
And so that's what saved me, because I didn't get any water in my lungs, which it was, when the canoe accident happened, I breathed in water 3 times. And so, and I didn't say this earlier, I will say this too. As bad as it looked, I always felt like we were going to make it. And I don't know why I felt like that, because remember when I had the canoe accident, I said, so this is how I'm going to die. Yeah. And then I hit my head on the canoe as I floated up. But in this case, it was, I mean, so bad. And all of a sudden I look, and there's this dude with a boogie board.
Yeah.
If he just showed up, he couldn't have helped me, but because he brought his boogie board. So I actually thought we could name this podcast "The Day the Boogeyman Saved Me," but we probably shouldn't do that. But it was just the fact that I was able to breathe.
Yeah.
That kept me from going under. But what wore me out was all that kicking and stuff.
Yeah.
Panicking about all the people around me. And one of the things that I definitely learned is, if I don't take care of me, I can't help anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's far, and that may sound like normal to y'all. That's foreign to me.
Yeah.
I have always, also when we were on the road, we had a bus, and then we also traveled in a van for years. I literally would ride down the road, and I would think about each person in the van, wondering if the air was right for them.
Wow.
I'm sitting there, there's Natalie, is she cold? Is Kenny? There's Wayne, Cindy, there's Eric, there's Rachel, and I'm constantly just always monitoring everybody else.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a noble thing. And we do need to love people. But Bob had to help me understand, Dale, you can't love others if you can't love you. And so I'm just learning more and more and more. And honestly, I guess part of that is what we do at 95 is helping so many people. I can't, if I take that upon myself, I can't help anybody.
Yeah. So
I've gotten to this place where hopefully I can speak the truth in love, and then let people make their own decisions. I remember when I was in high school, I had this guy named Billy, and he was a star basketball player, and me and a friend went to witness to Billy. It's what Baptists do. You go to people and witness to them. So I'm talking to Billy, and Billy's like, yeah, man, I'm lost. I know I'm lost. I'm just like giddy knowing that when I look at him and say, Billy, so would you like to pray to receive Jesus? I'm just like, he's going to, and it's going to be awesome. Yes. We're all going to cry. And I looked at him and said, so would you like to pray to receive Jesus, Billy? He goes, no, not right now. I still got some wild things I want to do. I'm like, are you kidding me? So that devastated me, because I'm like, I failed at leading Billy to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mentor who told me, he said, Dale, your job's to tell them you can't save anybody.
Yep.
And that helped. But there's just a lot of our pastors listening right now, and a lot of leaders listening right now, a lot of daddies listening right now, and even moms who are listening right now. You think you got to sacrifice yourself. And as Carl said on the podcast we did with him, you got to put your mask on first, or you can't help anybody. And I know that because, what we do at 95 is to help pastors and to help leaders, and they're not healthy. And I have not said this before on the podcast, but I'm going to say it today. The outlook for the church is really kind of grim right now, because our pastors are not healthy and aren't seeming to get healthy. And, when you hear that in 2 different publications, 80% of them think about quitting, and I get it. I'm not blaming them. I get it. But this is not what God called us to do. Jesus called us to do ministry from him, not for him. And if we could just nail that one down, it's not about us. It's just about letting him work through us and being okay with that. So part of me is that I will say that I'm at the most contentment and peace that I've ever remember experiencing in my life today. Because the other question I had for Bob was, I said, Bob, I don't want to die. I'm 59 years old. I've got so much. I've got grandkids and kids and a wonderful wife and family and friends. I want to be here for these people. And in our ministry, I love what we do, helping pastors. And so I just really appreciate the value of life and how it can be gone in a moment.
Yeah.
And so I want everyone listening today to stop and take a breath and just, could you start living? Instead of existing, it's time to start living. And if if you're married, let the person you're married know you love them. And I mean, really let them know. And if you've got kids, I don't care if you've messed it up all the way up to this point. Start today fresh. If you've got relationships that are broken, fix them if you can. But it's time that we all start living. Jesus didn't come to give us existence. He came to give us life.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. However many more years I got, I'm just hoping. I'm gonna wear a life jacket all the time. When I get in the shower now, I'm wearing a life jacket. So because I just don't want any more water experiences. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, you did. You did. Honestly, that exactly what you just said is worth it all. And I think that is also worth it all for you, like not just for our listeners. I really do. Like you need to listen to what Dale just said, but just for you, I am encouraged that like such crazy events, also it pushed you to the breaking point of the stalled message. Like the stuff you just said, really, and at the essence, it's stalled. It's the message of hope and help for pastors who thought they'd be there by now.
And I want, before you dive into the, don't lose that point, because I want to say this, because I want to make sure everybody understands it's not just, and this was the revelation, because I had writer's block at one point writing the book, because it's not just about helping you get unstalled.
Yeah.
It's about you handing off ministry to a healthy ministry to the next gen.
Yeah.
That's the part we cannot lose. So the next part there.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, even for you, you've learned that before, and you know that stuff like in your head, it in your heart too. But even for you, like, you still can get to this place where it's almost like torn down in a way, like deconstructed, if you want to use that word. And
let's don't use that word right now.
Well, I know, but
too many people are using it.
I know, but I also use it intentionally, because now you look at it and you say, am I going to rebuild like that? Am I going to believe that? Am I going to hold fast to that truth and the reality that God is in control and it's not on my shoulders, and he is here with me. He is here to carry it. He believes in me. He's not disappointed in me. The list goes on. Like, am I going to believe that?
The key that I learned was that trauma is as bad as a physical injury. I've never ever, that's never crossed my mind. It's like, well, if you just got to suck it up. That's just the way I grew up. It's just like, you don't feel emotions. You don't you don't deal with that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's always been a stigma. And I think we're doing a little better, but not much better in the church with anybody who has kind of mental issues or struggles with stuff. It's kind of like, well, you're just weak or whatever.
Right.
And so, I mean, I like I told you before, I grew up with a dad. I'd watch him throw up on the side of his truck and still go to work that day.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle spending time reading because I feel guilty because I'm not doing real work.
Yeah.
Because that's what wimpy people do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have this understanding of life that you don't, you know, you just ignore those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like a layered onion of trauma that goes, I mean, God brought back things. I give you an example. So I hadn't thought about this
in years,
20, 30 years. I don't even know. So when I was in the 5th grade, I had a best friend named Ronnie. Ronnie was in the 6th grade. And Ronnie and I had just really become really good friends. We're plugged in at church. We're singing the youth choir together. We're doing leads and that stuff. And Ronnie got killed by a school bus. Wow. He dropped his book bag or something. We didn't have book bags back then. He dropped something. He bent down to get it. And then when the bus took off, it rolled back and hit him and killed him.
Wow.
Well, I'm in the 5th grade. So our family, they just protect you from all that stuff. I didn't get to go to, you know, to anything with the funeral or any of that stuff. Well, that was a very traumatic thing. And it was just
you never grieved it.
You never grieved. You just move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. Happened when I was, you know, what was I? I'm in the 5th grade. So what is that? 10, 11 years old?
Yeah.
59 years old. Hadn't thought about that. And that comes back up. So there's layers and layers and layers of things that have happened that I haven't dealt with. And again, I don't want to go overboard with this because I don't think you have to spend the rest of your life going back and living in the past. Mm-hmm. But if the past is in your future or in your present,
right. If it's holding on to you.
And my issue wasn't the things that happened. It was the understanding the impact of the trauma, which kind of, you know, if you guys have not listened to the podcast that we did with Carl Vaders, you need to go back and listen to it. It was back in June.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, because that, and dude, I listened to that podcast riding back from Savannah and just bawled the whole time.
Yeah, I believe
I just bawled the whole time because it was just, you know, so I had Carl just he kind of scratched the surface, but then Bob goes deep into it, understanding how the brain works. And, you know, the greatest parts of your brain are up in the upper part. And if you live all your life in the stem of your brain, you never even experience things God's got for you.
Yeah. So,
I'm excited about the future. I'm happy in the present. And I trust the Lord. And so, you know, I can't really sit there and give you a process for everything that's happened, but I'm okay. Mm-hmm. You know, he's got me. He's got Gina, and he's got our kids, and he's got our grandkids, and he's got our friends, and he's got this ministry, and he's got my friends at New Spring, and he's got it. I ain't got to worry about it. It's not up to me. But I do want to be the best possible version of myself I can. I want to be that vessel that he can just work through and do ministry through, and whatever he does with it's fine. I will tell you this, you know, I think if we're all honest, there's times that we want to be out front, you know, we want to be on the stage, or we want to, I don't give anything about any of that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, God, if you want to use me, fine. If you don't, fine. If it's with an individual, if it's doing a conference, I just don't care. I just want to live each day hanging out with Jesus.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There we go. All right. The last thread I do want to pull on is,
got a thread here. Oh, good.
So the first one's for you and you know, our leaders listening. Second one is for the ministry. So, you know, you did take 40 days and we're theoretically resting.
I was gone. Let's just say we're gone.
Yeah, well, you were gone.
Yeah.
But as you do come back, you know, even just for 95 Network, it doesn't have to be new things, but what is either a new perspective or direction or a renewed perspective or direction that you're kind of coming into leadership with today?
I hope this makes sense, but there's a fresh anointing upon 95 Network that I already can feel. I mean, it started today.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I got nothing to offer you. I can't help you, but I can be a donkey and he can talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fresh anointing, even on the materials that we already have and our conference. And this, I can already tell you, I can already see it. Our conferences this year are going to be powerful. We're still going to cover the same content, but there's just something shifted. And something shifted with 95 Network. Next week, I'm hopping on a plane and going to California with Carl Vaders, and we are recording 4 videos with our friends at Purpose Driven at Saddleback. And they are promoting it. They're recording it. They're editing it. They're making a booklet. They're doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
They made it registration available yesterday, and they've already had 200 people sign up.
That's amazing.
Oh, dude, it's awesome. Not until September. It's the last 2 Thursdays of September and the first 2 Thursdays of October.
Can they tell people about our stalled event in November?
Yes, they will. That'll be part of what we do is we tag it with it. Well, and it's funny you brought that up because I'm like, freaking out about this event we're doing because it's like I've never hosted a national event. Is anybody going to come? And we've had a few people sign up.
Yeah.
And Bob looked at me and said, Dale, let it go.
Right.
And Bob's going to be there with me. He's like, let it go. Jesus told you to do the event. The host, New Spring, let us host it there. They said, yeah. And God will get who God wants there. And I'm like, wow, it's freeing. So that's a definite thing. I let that go.
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about it. And that doesn't mean we don't promote it. We don't put the word out about it. But I can't make anything happen. I am not going to worry about making anything happen. So there's one thing for sure. I understand there's a fresh anointing on what we're doing. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we have a bunch of new information because honestly, the information the church has needed is pretty much the stuff we've been, they're not doing this stuff. And so, but I do believe there's going to be more understanding with the folks as they attend our events and that kind of thing. And so I'm really excited about that because look, man, this fall is so booked up. We got so many events and I'm keynote speaking in a few things. And I cannot wait to see Jesus just do what Jesus does. Because if we don't get to that point again in the church, we aren't smart enough. There are no seminars out there that can help us. Yeah. The majority of I think majority is the fair word too. The majority of the people we've looked up to, most of them we're discovering weren't living what they were preaching, or a lot of them, I should say. We need to, if you get to this is important. This might be your clip for the show.
There you go.
When we get to a place in ministry, when we're bigger than Jesus, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
When people talk more about us and our sermons or our music or our production than Jesus, we're in trouble. You've heard me talk about it. And I think we need to do an entire podcast on this, on touching the glory. But the problem we have is just, and I use him for example, Samson was anointed to destroy the Philistines. That was one of the things that was in his anointing. But he kept playing around with that anointing with Delilah, and he would tease it and talk about it. But when he finally tells her where it lies, and he gave it away, the Bible says that the next morning she woke up and said, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And the Bible says, he said, I'll go and I'll do what I've always done. But you guys know what the Bible says. It says he did not realize the Spirit of God had departed from him. I think we have a lot of churches that do ministry, good stuff. Maybe it's even practical stuff, but the Spirit of the Lord has departed. And that's a dead end. And I believe you and I have been talking about for a while. I believe there's going to be this great move of God that happens, but you can also have a great falling away that happens at the same time. You get to choose which one you want to be part of. For me, I do not want to do a thing without the Spirit of the Lord just all over me, and so I want to be as yielded and open and understanding of what the Spirit is doing in my life as I ever have been. So that excites me.
I love it. Well, Dale, it is good to have you back. Like, for real.
I can assure you it's good to be back.
I know you're like, let's cruise forward. Let's forget the last 40 days. No, but I am proud of you for a couple things. One is I did not get a text or an email from you for the last 40 days.
You did.
And I did not expect to, like, it wasn't something, but I was excited to see you do that.
Yep.
And that was really, really cool. And the second thing is I really am very proud of you for being willing to fly down to Texas to go through counseling. And I know for you,
I had to.
I know. And for you though, like that is uncomfortable. Like it's a different process than you're used to. Yep. And I think it was just a really, really cool decision and even a model for some of our listeners as well.
I was broken and I knew it. I'm going, okay, I can't articulate this. And again, I didn't understand how trauma was, but I'm going, I can't go on.
Yeah.
Because if you don't work through it, you can get to a place where you look at the Lord with question marks, where you look at the Lord and go, do you really have my back?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the example we always give, that when you're in a foxhole in the battle, you want to make sure everybody's shooting the same direction. Well, you can't get in a foxhole with the Lord and not know if he's got your back. And I knew that I could not do that. I could not answer that question. I could not solve that problem without going and getting help. Yeah. And people will say, well, why did you go to Texas? Because I don't know. I hate to say this, but this is just true. I don't have anyone in my life that I trust more than Bob, that I could do that, pour that out to. Because a lot of, as you know, a lot of my friends are younger than I am.
Totally.
And I needed someone that could really go deep with me, and he did. And so I'm thankful that I had the chance to do that, but I also, just being very honest with you, know that, dude, this podcast would have been very different if I hadn't gone there.
Yep.
Because I couldn't go beyond where I was.
Wow. All right. Well, that is going to conclude this episode right here. That was crazy. That was a wild ride, and it was only an hour long, not even as long as your 40-day experience. But we really have some cool conversations coming up on the podcast, and
yes, we do.
I'm just excited about it. It was kind of fun, Dale. Like while you were out, we did some like different type of episodes. We shared my communication session. We shared that one on the podcast, and I forget what the one before that was, but it was another fun one, kind of different.
Tony Morgan.
Oh yeah, we reshared Tony Morgan's. Yes, look at you following along. And that one was really fun too, just to like go back and re-listen to that, because it was like, it was the very beginning of our show, but also just like, it just grounded everything, COVID aside, what makes a healthy church. And, but I'm excited to kind of get back to some conversations that you and I are planning on having. Theoretically, we have a pretty big guest coming on the episode after this one. And if that happens, be on the lookout for next week's conversation. But we're just really grateful to you guys for following along. And I know that as Dale continues to kind of unpack some of that journey, there's going to be some more insight as well that he gets and wants to share.
So if you're listening and you're like, okay, all right, I got to get help. Yeah. You don't know where to turn, reach out to us and we will help you. We will point you in the right direction, because we have a lot of ministry partners that can help you.
Thanks for listening to the 95 Podcast. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. In the meantime, visit our website at 95network.org. The website is loaded with great resources created for small and mid-sized church leaders. Until next time, have a great week.